Rising inflation, low GDP growth, low external reserves and revenues, as well as low crude oil production were some of the economic shocks the Nigerian economy suffered in the year 2022. No thanks to challenges of insecurity, oil theft, the Russia-Ukraine war and flooding, which saw the government intervene through various policies to revive the economy. We turn our attention to the economy as we continue our review of various sectors in 2022.
The year 2022 started with high hopes for Nigeria, as projections by the World Bank revealed that the country's economy would grow to about 3.8%. For an economy that was only trying to recover from the global effect of the COVID-19 pandemic, that projection was good news. However, all that began to change owing to the disruptions caused by insecurity, low revenue generation, especially arising from a deep cut in crude oil production. The Russia-Ukraine war has also impacted the economy, as some critical imports such as wheat continue to be disrupted. By the end of the third quarter, the World Bank advised that the nation had to make hard choices or face a worse economic downturn in the months and years ahead, as it reviewed downward its growth projection to 3.1%. The World Bank backed its advice with some economic realities, such as slow economic growth in the third quarter due to a weak performance in critical areas of the economy. Key macroeconomic indices such as the rising inflation currently at 21.47% as at November, from the October rate of 21.09%, low debt to GDP ratio, low external reserves, sharp cuts in crude oil production, flooding, job losses and revenue shortfall still raised concerns.
Once there is security, investment will come. Investment cannot come without security. First thing first. You are not also sure that your investment will be safe because of insecurity. That's number one. Then number two, once the insecurity comes, people will invest in manufacturing and they will invest in agriculture. Agriculture has to be revived. And revive in a way that agriculture works in most countries.
With these new trajectories, it may just be high time for the government to change its plans. While Nigerians were still grappling with the rising inflation and its attendant effect on food prices and the general cost of living, then came the floods, with devastating effects on farmlands and crops. Virtually every state in the country was seriously affected, displacing over 1.4 million persons. Approximately 2,776 persons were injured, while 612 persons lost their lives. This, however, came with assurances from the government through the provision of relief materials and funding to boost dry season farming to cushion the effects.
The bank released a sum of 57.9 billion under the Anchor Borrowers program to 185,972 new projects for the cultivation of rice, wheat, and maize, bringing the cumulative disbursement under the program to 1.01 trillion naira. Disbursed over 4.2 million smallholder farmers cultivating 21 different commodities across the country.
Notwithstanding the current situation, the government says it's taken hard decisions to improve key economic indices and insists that the nation is not broke, given its debt stock and other worrisome economic indices.
Oil revenue is underperforming because of the criminality, but recently NNPC has reported that that has been curtailed, and we're already beginning to see the pick up in the production volumes, which will mean that more revenues will come to the Federation. You're broke when you don't have anything coming in.
And just before the end of the year, the Apex Bank in October came up with a policy to redesign the Naira. The bank cited reasons such as the need to take control of currency in circulation and address the hoarding of Naira notes outside the banking system, the shortage of clean and fit notes in circulation, and the increase in counterfeiting of high-denomination Naira banknotes. This was then followed by the pegging of the limit of cash withdrawal at 20,000 Naira daily withdrawal limit on individual accounts and 50,000 Naira limit on over-the-counter third-party checks. This generated a lot of debate from Nigerians. And after a back and forth with members of the National Assembly, the central bank increased the withdrawal limit to 500,000 naira weekly for individuals and 5 million naira for corporate bodies, but with strict conditions. As the year 2022 winds down, many hope that the right economic policies and decisions will be made going forward, such that the economy can find its footing in 2023 and beyond.
Let's now take a deeper look into our assessment of the economy in 2022. And joining us to discuss this in the studio here in Lagos is an economist, professor of economics at the Lagos Business School, Professor Bongo Adi. Welcome to the News at 10.
Thank you very much.
How would you say the nation's economy performed in 2022?
Well, I think it's been a mixed bag of issues. 2022 could be aptly characterized as a year of contagion. Yeah, so the Russian-Ukrainian crisis, spawned up a supply shock that harmed the global economy. So Nigeria is not exempt from that. So we had that coming in. So it's an imported inflation and, of course, debt. Yeah, the issue of debt has been one that has been embedded and accumulating in our economy over the years. But now it has reached a very critical point where it's beginning to hamper and hurt the government's ability to provide services, because the fiscus has been constrained because government is now challenged by having to service debt at very high rates. So that has curtailed critical service provision to the citizens, and then we are seeing that reflected in a high level of sufferings of the masses. And then, of course, the exchange rate debacle, which has been a constant factor in the economy over the past few years. And then we have the energy crisis again. We shouldn't be there, but that's where we find ourselves. The long queues are returning at the filling stations. And the major cities of Nigeria, like Abuja and Lagos, have been under that for quite a while right now. And that is really creating a problem for the economy.
Some of them you've mentioned are global also impact and some peculiar to Nigeria, but most significant that you think hampered our economy, because in some ways the economy could have managed to buffer with things that could have occurred like flooding, but then what was most significant?
Flooding is not a problem. It's a problem in the sense that it caused wreaked havoc, loss of life and property. That's a big issue, right? But then when we talk about the aggregate, the general economy, flooding hasn't been the major challenge that we faced. I think the way the economy has been managed, hasn't quite been optimal. Right, so a lot is a lot to be desired in the way the economy has been managed. We have these unproductive subsidies that everybody thought could have gone by now, but it's been sustained, and then that has been a big drain and corruption reading. Everybody knows that, so that has actually hurt the economy. And then, of course, we have this. The call on Nigeria's economy is a call on oil price. We shouldn't be where we are right now. Actually, the Russian-Ukrainian crisis, even though it carries that supply shock, bad news for global economies that are oil importing. But for an oil exporting country like Nigeria, if we had maintained our volumes at 2 million barrels per day, okay, at such high price, we would be actually smiling to the banks right now. But unfortunately, it's not the case. Again, because of the poor management of the economy and the inability of the government to take decisive action on oil theft.
How do you think we can get the economy back on track? I mean, and this is also as we get into an election year.
Is there anything that the government can do right now? I doubt there is much left to be done, because we just have to take the things as it is, because there is no policy that they can release right now that have any impact on the economy until, because we talk about the time lag between policy and this full impact, so that takes quite a number of time. So I don't see what could be done right away to begin to get the economy. But of course, they can still continue to lay some foundations. Yeah, when I said mixed bag, I know that some policies have been passed, some bills, like the Petroleum Industry Act, okay? Earlier I was speaking to some people today, and I said that it's too early to begin to evaluate the impact of that. And then we have the Electoral Reform Act as well. So like I said, the test of the pudding is in the eating. So we are still to put those things to test. The election is coming in February next year. That is when we will know whether the Electoral Act is actually, will help us. So those are some of the improvements I think that will help us to run a transparent election, because politics determines everything in Nigeria. When we have the right people in place, I'm sure that they will, of course, be decisive about policies, and then we will be sure that we have a growing economy, because that's what everything is all about.
Professor of Economics, Professor Bongo Adi, thank you for joining me on the News at 10.
Thank you.